Oh my God! It's everyone's famous boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. Today we're going to look at this lens, this super radioactive lens. I'm getting 1,500 clicks per minute. Let's put that over here. So they go into a refractory period. What lens is this? Super TAKUMAR 1 to 2 55mm Asaya Optical Company lens made in Japan. It's an M42 screw mount. I can see why a lot of these got dropped. Oh, that's annoying. I'm going to have to shut that off. Beep. I bought a SP500, and I believe this came in an SP500. This is actually a 55mm without any damage. Nothing. Now I noticed that these series of lenses they have 3 screws equidistant apart. I guess they hold something, and they all seem to have chips there, and the screw gets rusty. Now I never touched these screws or did anything, but all the ones I got, they all have this little chip area there, and the screws look rusty. So it'd be good if you were, say, horse trading with somebody about a lens, and it could be in excellent condition, and he wants to charge you a primo price. You can always say, oh, well, look at these screws, and they got hints of rust on them. Maybe it was played with or something, and maybe you could get him to shave off a couple pennies or something. But other than that, this is a really fine optic. Takes excellent pictures. It focuses down to less than 1.5 feet or 0.545 meters. It goes from f2 to f16 and half f-stops, which is nice. I usually leave it at f8. This on the Photodiox Pro M42. This is for Sony E because it's on the Alpha or A6000. But even if you buy one for a K mount, the M42 to K mount, or a Z, this mount, you notice how the diameter is quite less than the lens. Well, a lot of quaternary companies, there are 3 companies. There's Canon, Nikon, or Nikon and Canon were number 1, Pentax is a close 3rd, and everyone else is 4th. So it was companies like Fuji, Yashica, I think Minolta, Mamiya Seikor, they had a little tab on their aperture ring. So when you go to spin it down on your camera, say like a Pentax camera or a regular mount, this little tab interferes with the, going to full distance. And then, you can't turn your aperture ring, and that's pretty stupid. I guess they had their brand of cameras, right? And they want to use their lenses on their cameras. So I guess they got together and made a consortium and said, let's screw over Pentax. Let's put a little tab on there, but we have like a clearance on our cameras where it'll work. So, little did they know, generations later, it sort of bite them in the ass a little bit. But Photodiox, they were smart, and they made the outside diameter of this adapter so it clears that tab. So you could use their lenses, and it wouldn't interfere with the screw going all the way down. Plus, you see this pin? This pin actuates the aperture and stops it down. And they have a little seat here. So when you're screwing it in, not only does it clear the tab, but on all lenses, that flange or that seat is in the proper position to close down your aperture. So this manual aperture switch means nothing. It's just a manual stop-down lens. So that's good to know, isn't it? So this bad boy is super radioactive. Let's turn this on. Maybe it had enough time to clear up. Oh, there we go. I gotta wait for it to go beep. Now this is where your face would be. Let's see if this camera blocks anything. Now the lens element is here. So you got some airspace. You got the guts of the camera. Let's see what happens. No, it doesn't look too bad. All right. But just think, all those alpha particles and gamma particles, gamma rays, and beta particles are bombarding your chip. Oh, that's like sort of like background. That's not too bad. I don't feel too bad using this lens then. So what, I sacrifice a camera. Who cares, right? Health and safety and all that. Now, I'm a boomer, and that means, well, there's not much time left to me. You're sort of towards the end of your life instead of the beginning of your life. But if you're a young person and you're using this lens, you could certainly get a longer lifetime dose out of it than, say, like an old fart such as myself. So, but it's a nice lens. It takes excellent pictures. Oh, I just want to point out one thing. Years ago, you know, when I was a young man, you were talking about radiation and all that. They say no dose of radiation is safe, right? Let's say, you know, don't expose yourself to any radiation. And they're saying, well, you know, after the atomic plant blew up in Fukushima, blew up in Japan, they're saying, well, you know, a little bit of radiation ain't gonna kill you. Maybe it'd be good for you. So it's strange how they you know, changed their standards on that. But they flooded the market with these, and no one knew about it. I found out about it by accident, just from surfing into like camera and lens sites on the internet. Now, that's an interesting thing. These lenses were so old, and that this element was self-irradiating itself, and that looks pretty clear. This thing was yellow. This rear element looked like a yellow-brown filter. Sort of almost the color of honey. That's how yellow it was. So I bought one of those ultraviolet fluorescent lights. They worked best. And I left it under there for 3 days, and it cleared up beautiful. And every once in a while, I just give it a shot to keep it, you know, cleared up. So it's an excellent performer across its whole focusing range. This is buttery smooth. I mean, there's no backlash or anything. The aperture works great. The blades aren't shiny or wore out. It's an excellent example. Maybe the guy bought this camera, they went to Disneyland, and then they never used it again. So it could be one of those deals. But it's a nice optic. I highly recommend it. Of course, I went to the park, and the park is only less than 15-minute ride from my house. And it's a nice park. It's not the Himalayas. It's not Yosemite. It's not, you know, Namaqualand in South Africa. But, I mean, for a place to live that's only 15 minutes away, it's a nice park. You know, it's quaint, without a doubt, but it's got some character. And that's why I go there, and I use it as a benchmark against all these lenses. So you may say, oh, my God, not the pictures of reeds again. But you're not taking pictures of reeds. It's for you to study and see how good is this lens on modern cameras. This is a 23 megapixel. Damn, they made this like in the 60s, which is like 40, 50, 60 years ago or something. And this thing still holds up after all this time. And there wasn't any film available that could tax this thing, if you understand what I'm saying. So f2, it's very usable. And as soon as you start down to f2.8, 4, 5.6, better and better. 8 is about as better as it's going to get. And I only use 11 and 16 when I need a lot of depth of field. So usually I shoot at f8. But that's the way it falls out. And if you don't believe me, just look at some pictures, and then you can decide whether it's a good lens or not. Now, you know, all right, I had all these 50 millimeters or 55 millimeters. Most of them were super Takumars or Pentaxes, and they are worth their money. If you get a perfect one, yeah, I guess you could spend $100. But anything less than perfection, you're looking at $50. And really banged up ones, you know, if you could get it for $20 and it's good, then you're ahead of the game. When I banged up, maybe it got dropped, you know, and you can see a big dent on the focusing ring or on the filter ring. And it'd be a crapshoot, though. You may get one where it affected the alignment of the optics, and then you just got to toss it and get another one. Or you may get one that survived the drop, because this is all aluminum, and aluminum is sort of sacrificial. So when it drops, the damage happens to this ring, but not the rest of the lens. And conversely, you know, even the focusing ring can collapse a little bit, and it won't affect the focusing ring may get stiff, but it's not going to affect the alignment of the lens, because that's the worst thing that can happen. If the alignment of the lens is off, then you're not going to get good pictures. So what you got to look for is how clear is the glass on the inside, freedom of dust, fungus, other debris, like that. And if it's radioactive, like I said, if you look through it against a white background like this, and it looks yellow, then you know you have something radioactive. So got to keep that in mind. All right, let's go look at some photos, and then you decide. Who's to say how long this gate latch is going to be there? There's no fencing around it. There's just two posts and the swinging door. So eventually, I guess they're going to knock it down and put up something more modern or substantial. So look at this. This is a one-to-one crop of these three duckies that have to be walking by the lake, and I've seen them. And I have just barely had enough time to do a quickie adjustment. Now here, this is F2 wide open. F2 wide open. This is a corner. For a corner, that's really decent for F2. Here's another corner. That was the lower corner. This is the upper corner. Still pretty decent. Of course, on a crop sensor, you would expect that. And then back to F8. You know, there's no doubt about it. You know, you're 2 feet away. It still performs admirably. Here's just a shot of, you know, the forest before the canopy closes it all up. And at F8, it's tack sharp. It is amazingly sharp. No doubt about it. I don't know if the radioactivity does anything. This, for a moment, you would think this is maybe a forest on a cliff face, but no, it's moss. And here's some moss on a stump. And look at that, it even shows detail. I mean, if you focus this thing precisely, you get really nice results. Without a doubt, it's a great lens. And this is, of course, this is in you know, the beginning of April, and a lot of trees are just starting to bloom. And, you know, you could tell that it just has a nice detail. It matches the sensor. This is an ugly tree. I think it's an alien disguised as a tree myself. It fell to earth, and it just says, well, I'm going to pretend I'm a tree. And then everyone thinks it's a tree, but it's actually an alien. And here's a corner shot. You know, F8, yeah, you expect to have a decent definition on the edges on a crop sensor. And it was a beautiful, clear day, and it was sunny in the morning, you know, 8 o'clock. And of course, everything had a bluish look to it, even though I had it on auto white balance. And of course, here's the reeds again. And you could check out the detail, the far off mountain. And then here's a shot. That was an infinity shot. Here's a close focus shot. I mean, it's a park. It's close to my house. You know, I don't have to drive hours, although people do drive hours to come here. And it's just a nice place to walk around. Of course, now that the weather is warm, there's too many bugs, and there's a lot of ticks, and they attack me. And I just, I don't go anymore. I'll just have to go to cities for the rest of the, you know, the warm weather. You know, May, June, July, August, September, October, because the bugs are horrendous. I never used to have a problem with ticks. I used to stomp through all the woods all over. There's a little bit of flare in this picture. I was shooting towards the sun. You see it in the upper right there. And these forsythias, they were really over 100 feet away easy. And here's the babbling brook. Now this brook, most of the time it's dry with only a trickle in it. And we've been having all this wet weather where there's like sort of light water in it, which I find amazing. But that's not to say we could go back to a drier spell and not see this amount of water. Yeah, and here's the brook. The sun was shining through it, and you know, I captured the ripples and how they affected the stuff on the bottom. And I was auto-adjusting a lot of these in the editing program I have. You can hit the auto-adjust, and like 80% of the time it would do a great job. And then the other 20% I had to finagle it. But all I did was maybe adjusted the brightness, the levels, whether it's the shadows or the highlights, and then no sharpening at all. This is strictly out of the camera. I think it did a really great job myself. And here's a real long exposure, 1/102 f/16, so I could get some motion blur of the water. And this rock just had this weird shadow, which helps to find the topography of this rock. Here's a close-up of the rock. And this is a further view of a rock right next to it, where the trees were casting these shadows, and you could tell there's a cliff face, and then the rock receded from that cliff face. I mean, so if you really, you can use this for archaeology, any sort of scientific endeavor when you need absolute sharpness. What's so great about 50 millimeters? They have very low distortion. Uh, they're not overly wide. They're not overly telephoto, so you can get decent depth of field. Uh, I'm a true believer of 50-55s now. You can always move closer or further away for the most part. So that's what I do. And these rocks, they have character, different stripes and cracks and cleavage in them. And here's the babbling brook. Is sort of, had a goodly flow of water in it. So here's a sign I use, a different reference picture, of Sussex County, New Jersey. I don't live in Sussex County, but I'm right next to it. And here's a close-up of the fine detail. And this is a thing, you focus this and you get great results out of it. And here's a stone wall the ancient astronauts built, or maybe Bigfoot or Sasquatch built it. I can't believe that people could do this, because when I go to the store, or I go to work, or anywhere where I see people, they seem pretty stupid. No one would do this. Everyone's a lazy bum. And see that boat over there? He had to be a couple 100 feet away easy. And then you could see that there's two people. They got different clothes on. One's got a light jacket, one's got a dark jacket. Here's some bicyclists drove by, and they went around the other side of the lake, and I had to be a couple 100 feet away, and I snapped their picture. Oh, those are one-to-one crops. This is a downsample crop where I cropped it more than just a full-frame crop. And here's some more people in the boat. I didn't notice these people were there. How about that? And on their way home, these people had this flowering tree in forsythias. I thought this was very contrasty, so I took a picture of it. It's a nice lens. I highly recommend you get one. If you can't get a good bargain, go for it.